You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
You're listening to a special episode of Canon Fodder as we bring you the High Republic panel from Portsmouth Comic Con. Hosting the panel was Michael Siglain from Lucasfilm, and joining him was Troy Alders, Rachael Stott, Cavan Scott, George Mann, and Nick Brokenshire. So let's go to Portsmouth Comic Con for the High Republic panel on Canon Fodder.
Hello, Portsmouth. Hi, everybody. Does he stay on? Doesn't stay on. All right. It is just about 2 o'clock. We are going to get rolling. Thank you all for coming out today for our Star Wars panel. My name is Michael Siglain. I'm the creative director of publishing for Lucasfilm. I am honored today to be joined by Troy Alders. Give him a round of applause, please. Art director for Lucasfilm. Artist Nick Brokenshire. Author George Mann. Author Cavan Scott. And artist Rachael Stott. So, we're going to do a little get to know you question or two first so that you guys in the audience can get to know these fine folks up here. The question for each of you, and we can start down that end with Troy, is
no pressure.
What was your favorite Star Wars character when you were 10, and what is it now?
You didn't tell me you were going to ask this. Well, I was 10. Star Wars still wasn't out for a couple years. I was born to James Bond. But I would say when Star Wars came out, it was Darth Vader. I tried to draw him. Tell him it was all black. I couldn't draw him. Right now, I would say, undoubtedly, it's little Grogu. Oh. No doubt. Saved me. Loved him. My baby.
Well, I was talking to Mike about it, I was the perfect age for Phantom Menace when it came out. So like, I had like a little Darth Maul costume, and like, I really loved that movie. And then when everyone was like, it's rubbish, this is rude Star Wars, I was like, has it? Okay. And then now it's having this like big resurgence, so it's kind of just like, vindication! I told you it was gonna, the Trade Federation stuff is an important storyline in the thing, so it's very good. And then was it like, who's my favorite current character? I'd probably say Ty Yorick, because I love drawing her and she's in the books I'm doing Cavan at the moment. But if you've seen my Twitter feed, it is Director Krennic from Rogue One, who will probably not get his own book in Marvel until I'm editor-in-chief, and then I can see the true vision that I have.
So when I was 10, it was Wicket. When I'm 51, it is Wicket. Because I'm true to my first loves, you know. I think other than Wicket, it's Chief Chirper.
George?
So R2-D2 for me when I was 10, and he's tough to beat. I saw an R2-D2 come in just as I was, I was thinking about it. And I was obsessed with him ever since Empire Strikes Back, and I got the action figure, and then I got another action figure, and then I got another action figure, and I had a whole row of R2-D2s, and all the droids in my Star Wars games were R2-D2. These days, I really like Sabine Wren. I love Star Wars Rebels, and it's been amazing to see Sabine cross over into live action as well, so I hope to see more of her in the future.
I think it was Vader to start with. I was 7 when I saw Star Wars. It was Vader and R2, because I was constantly trying to draw them. I focused on them a lot. And then latterly, I focused a lot on the female characters. Oh, is that coming through? No? I like the female characters. So I kind of go between
There you go.
Between Ahsoka, Ventress, and Leia a lot in my head. So one of those.
Right on. Thanks, Nick.
All right, so seeing as is let me try that again. Seeing as it is the 25th anniversary of Phantom Menace, another get-to-know-you question for the panelists is, do you have a favorite memory of that film, either when it came out, when you first saw it, if you just saw it recently, when it was re-released? Troy, we'll start again with you.
What about your favorite characters?
Yeah, Mike.
I asked the question.
No, Mike.
Okay, so we're doing it that way, are we? When I was a kid, my favorite was Han Solo because he had a cool ship and he had a Wookiee co-pilot. And then my favorite now is Luke Skywalker. Pretty simple.
What about Wicket?
He doesn't even make the top 10.
I have a guinea pig called Wicket. That's how much we love him in our house.
I don't think they last long, you know.
What? No, he's old in Rise of Skywalker. He's old and grey.
I meant the guinea pig.
What?
I thought it was breaking terrible news by Ewok.
What was the Phantom Menace question?
You have a favorite memory of Phantom Menace?
Oh, wow. I mean, that's really, I was hired in '94 because George was writing a new film. Kind of decided to put out a special edition first, so we had lots of time to work on it. But, you know, my kid was 4. He kind of looked exactly like little Jake Lloyd. It was probably being in London watching them film it and taking my kid to the premiere. And I mean, I will say, I think even seeing the folks dressed up, there's a Natalie downstairs dressed in my favorite costume of the Queen that I think it was all her really elaborate costume that Tricia Bigger designed that really stands out. I mean, Darth Maul was our icon, but he was a little too evil and devil-like for me to say is my favorite. I think it was just the kind of Art Deco, Art Nouveau design that ran through the whole thing that I really loved.
Cool. Rachel?
Yeah, saying about the Padme's costumes, like, yeah, the whole movie is just beautifully designed. Like, the way they did all the ships on Coruscant and all the, it's like, oh, let's do a new Star Wars, but do all this, like, new stuff that always fits in so well into it, really good. But if we're saying about our favourite thing, I have to shout out to the N64 pod racing game. There was not a single, like I practically burnt out the cartridge from playing that again and again and again. It was amazing. I've literally never reached that high ever again in life at all. Yeah,
Well, I was very cross though in our Ewoks. It was a big disappointment. So I have a complicated history with the Phantom Menace because I was at that age when I was very angry about life. When you're young and foolish, you can't be such things. I think looking back now, though, for whatever I expected in my head it to be and what it turned out to be, seeing Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan just be Jedi in that opening sequence and the lightsaber, like lightsabers battles can look like that. That's incredible. And I had been a long-time fan of the Dark Horse comics and Republic, which is still one of my favourite comics that Star Wars has ever done. And so it did feel like it was the excitement of sort of seeing that kind of Jedi on the screen. So yeah, seeing those two and seeing what Jedi can actually do.
For me, I was working as a manager in a bookstore at the time, and there was obviously a lot of publishing and media associated with what was going on in the film. The thing that actually really sticks in my mind was some of the publicity material that was sent out to bookstores was like these articulated life-size cardboard droids. So we had a battle droid and I had several pit droids to do window displays with. And there was a real moment because in those days, you know, I hadn't seen that sort of thing, you know, for years and years. That sort of merchandise for Star Wars, and then being able to kind of get these little pit droids out of the box, and they're like life size, and it was just kind of like, wow, this is real. It's like Star Wars is back. So that's kind of my favourite memory of that time. In terms of the film, I like Rachael, I still love the pod racing. I played that game recently actually, on an emulator, and it was amazing. It still holds up.
This is a true story, and no one believes it. When it must have been a year before, and they released a trailer for Phantom Menace, before a movie called Prince of Egypt, and it might have been longer. And I was in the cinema, and before the trailer had even started, the lights had gone down, and there something came on, and it just went dark, and I just knew that it was going to be Star Wars. There was nothing that was telling me it was going to be Star Wars, but I just went like that and my friend was like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "Star Wars," and then it went, oh. and that's true. I got like precognitive
You said
knowledge.
Yes.
I did, and like from that point onwards, and I, you know, I'm an OG generation, I loved every second of Phantom Menace. And like the details, like whenever, you know, like when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan would put away their lightsabers, it was just like, and they would just like flip them away, or it'd be out immediately rather than this thing. Stuff like that just got me fired up completely. So I missed all the hate. I didn't even notice it. Didn't hear it. Bubble.
Nice. Well, we are here to talk about High Republic, but speaking of Phantom Menace, I just wanted to touch upon a couple books we're doing. That's better. With Bonnier here in the UK. So we're retelling the films. We're retelling F1 and F4 using the original concept art. And each of them has a foreword by Troy Alders, our art director. Troy, I don't know if you wanted to speak about these a little bit, or what this art means to you.
I mean, it was quite the task to go through. I was very honored to do those, but I think what was amazing is that I actually wrote 1 through 9, and it goes from age 12 to 59. And so just, you know, writing a page, I mean, Disney's done this before for some of their things, and they kind of work where the person really talks about where they were in their life and what they were going through. And, you know, being able to say, you know, I was 12 when I saw New Hope, and I was 18 with Return of the Jedi on my way to art school, and it was just a real, I mean, it was really just really made me reflect on my life and how much of my life's been a Star Wars story. So it's really honored. They look really great. We were in London meeting with the publisher on Thursday and seeing the actual copies. They're beautiful. And I don't think, I mean, it's kind of amazing to me, nobody's done, even beyond Lucasfilm, nobody's done retellings with concept art, because it's so beautiful. I mean, I think that Rachael portfolio from '77 was definitely one of my favorite pieces of merchandise and everything.
Yeah, we saw these for the first time like 2 days ago, and they are stunning. Bonnier's done a really beautiful job, so these will be out here later this year, but we are here today to talk about High Republic. So, for those of you who may not know, the High Republic is a multi-publisher mega story. It takes place hundreds of years before the prequels, and it's the story of the Jedi Knights at their height. All right, we have a lot of books. These are some of the current titles that we have going on with the High Republic, but one of the things I'm really proud to say is that everyone on this stage were involved from the very, very early days. Cavan, obviously from the very, very beginning, same with Troy. But everyone here has been working on this project for years and years and years, and just really pouring their hearts into it. And it's really appreciated. And to see, you know, folks in costume, you know, and know that it's resonating means the world to us. You know, so I'll throw it out to anyone on the group here. Why do you think this has resonated with fans the way it has?
I honestly believe that it was a good thing that came out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because I think it's the right time when we all needed something, the High Republic came along. And obviously there was a delay because of it, but I think then when it did launch and we could get it out there, it was something that people all over the world, when they couldn't get together, could get together online and talk about this thing. And, you know, stories of hope and you know, and moments of despair and getting through it and all those kind of things, I think they were really important. And then that built into a fandom, and for me, the fandom is the High Republic. And I know, I mean, we've talked about this before, the first celebration in Anaheim, when we went over there, we had no idea what the response was going to be like, because we'd done this all remotely, literally. And then we went they took us in the room, which was the High Republic panel room, and we were like, they've taken us in the wrong room, this is the only one room, what are they doing? But we went out there and we had lights on and we couldn't see, and we could, you could see like the first couple of rows, and there was people dressed as Marky and Rowe and stuff, you know, this is cool. And you could hear there was a general, you know, you could hear the noise of the room, but you still didn't know how many people were in that room. And at the end, the lights went up, and you could see it was at capacity, people stand at the back. And they said to us, you do realize this room sits 4,000 people. 4,000 people turn up for a book and comic panel. That's incredible. And it was all because of those group of people coming together and really welcoming this in as part of Star Wars and in part of their own fandom. So yeah, for me, the High Republic is the High Republic fandom.
And I think you're right about the timing of it all, right? I was saying this to someone last week where, you know, it was a really dark, scary time, right? It was the middle of the pandemic. When we announced the initiative, when we announced we teased Project Luminous a year in advance, and then, we announced what it was in February, and then the world shut down a month later.
I didn't even know if I was going to get home. Do you remember it?
Yeah.
It was that thing because we launched it in the States, and Claire, my wife, was phoning me going, it's not. Claire was saying, you're going to get on a plane soon, because they're talking about shutting the airports. And just in that week of arriving in LA and leaving at the airports, everything had changed. So that was, and then you literally got home, and then it was
lockdown.
It was done. And for working on this, as someone who's working on it, the highlight was the weekly meeting when we could talk about it and keep working, because so much shut down, but this kept going.
Yeah, we kept going with this. We started with the 5 original authors, and we, like Cav said, we met weekly, emailed and spoke daily. But one of the things that we did focus on quite a bit, at least initially, was concept art, right? And everyone was involved in it, right? Everyone has a seat at the table. Everyone has a voice in what it was. Troy had a very big seat at the table, obviously, as the art director for Lucasfilm. Troy, can you speak a little bit to what this process was like in creating all of this new art?
I mean, from my memory, I honestly just remember Mike coming in and saying, what are we going to get? And I said, well, let's call Ian McKay. And I know that's not Ian McKay there, but that's really my memory. I feel like this came after or simultaneous.
Right after, yeah.
And I think, I don't know if I'm getting ahead because I haven't seen what on earth Mike has up here to show everyone. I just remember there was a moment where we realized, oh my God, we can give Yoda 2 new outfits? He's never had a new outfit, and it's like, we kept talking about it, nobody really noticed. And I was like, Mike, we have to, this is really exciting. And we were so excited, again, I think it was because of the pandemic. He never had a new outfit. I don't know if he'll ever get another outfit, but that's really what I remember. I remember we wanted Ian so bad, and called him, and I knew him and, had done things with him in the past when he was up at the ranch, but I think we just said, let's get him here. I remember we had this locked room where we kept everything, and we kind of set up a desk and printed out this big view of San Francisco, like there was a window, and we just said, we need you to work in here, and it was a great week. And in fact, I think it's in that High Republic book, we took him to this restaurant in San Francisco called the Balboa Cafe that has big tablecloths of paper, and we just drew at dinner, and nobody knew what we were doing, and it's in the book. He was coming up with monsters, Mike was coming up with things, I think he was drawing our kids.
He was, yeah. For those of you who don't know, Ian McKay is the concept artist who created Amidala and The Look for Darth Maul. He is Star Wars royalty, so to have him come in and start designing characters was phenomenal. And then from there, we opened it up to artists from all over the world, all throughout Lucasfilm, Disney, Pixar. We mined concept art that was unused from films because we were creating an entirely new era. And when you do that, you need to create a lot of art. And so we started, with Light of the Jedi. And this was phase 1 of the initiative. This is a snapshot of what we released, not the individual comics, but the idea with this was that you could have a story for everyone, right? Everyone should be able to see themselves within Star Wars. Star Wars should be for everyone, and everyone should have a story, and it shouldn't all be the same story. So that if you have, a 9-year-old, 10-year-old at home, and they want to read about Star Wars, they're reading something, and it can connect to, what you're reading about, or what your aunt, uncle, brother, sister, cousin, best friend's reading about. And if you want to read all of it, wonderful, but you don't have to. And I think the thing that surprised us after we had launched it was how many people really read all of it, which was wild, because we thought, okay, well, you'll have your fans who are reading, just the adult novels, or just the comics, or just the manga. And everybody wanted to read everything, which is wild, not what we expected. And the thing I will say, because we had a question about it, you had a question about it earlier, it's like, where do you start? Wherever you want, right? It's not homework. You want to start with a young adult novel? great. You want to start with an adult novel, you want to start with a comic, a middle grade novel, the audio. There's multiple jumping on points, and that's part of the fun of what this is. And if you have a particular format you like, say you love young adult novels, great. But if you want to try something else, well, hey, we've got plenty here to choose from. George, you were involved in a lot of this from the start, sort of under the radar at first. If you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So just to I testify to what Mike was saying first about jumping on points. That is actually one of the notes that he gives us most, which is, we're writing a book. We're quite far into the High Republic now, as I'm sure a lot of you know, into phase 3, and the constant reminder is, don't forget, people might not have read any of the other books. This needs to be accessible to everyone. So we always do strive to make sure you can pick up any book and read it. But yeah, so I joined fairly early on. So the group of 5 architects had kind of come up with the overarching story with the guys at Lucasfilm. And I was working on a book called Dark Legends, which is kind of a collection of horror stories, Grimm's fairy tales, stories set in the Star Wars universe. And Mike had said to me, we've got these monsters called the Drengir, kind of like living plants, and they're in the High Republic, and we'd like it if you did a story based around those guys. So I'm going to send you some information about the Drengir. But I'm also going to send you lots of information about the High Republic in general, and just read it all and put it in the back of your mind, because you're going to need it later. Which was great. So I did. I wrote the Drengir story, and then I was given access to some of the early manuscripts, the early versions of some of the manuscripts that were coming through from the other writers. So I was reading them as they were kind of being written. And then Mike said, we've got some picture books we want to do for kids, which kind of take place within the adult novels, within the framework of the adult novels. So thankfully, because I've been tipped off, I've read them, so I'm in a good place to be able to write those books. And that's the kind of point I joined the team, really, and then rolling into phase 2, I started to get kind of full projects from there.
And then from here, so we launched with Light of the Jedi, and then from here we moved into Quest of the Jedi. And Cav, you did a lot of work on this, particularly with the different variations of Force users. If you want to talk just a bit to that, because I don't know if everyone is really aware of that, and how important a role that still plays in phase 3.
Yeah, so phase 2 is set, we go back in time a bit more, because we just basically, George Lucas did it, so we thought if he can do it, so can we. So phase 1 happens, and then 150 years earlier, phase 2 happens. It tells you the story of the beginnings of the main story. And we go back to Jeddah, the planet that was in Rogue One. And I was always fascinated when I read Pablo Gardo's book on, the visual dictionary. He put all these little hints in of the false religions that were on Jeddah, and Jeddah in itself is very much like a melting pot of all these different religions, which we've heard about in Star Wars, and of course in the old expanded universe they were, we had a lot of the older false religions as well. And so I was pushing quite heavily to be able to explore that in a world where the Jedi aren't the main force religion, and on Jeddah we very much said that they are tolerated on Jeddah, and we created this thing called the Convocation of the Force, which is an advisory council of all the different force users, both light and dark, getting together to try and work out how do we live together in a galaxy where the force is a reality. So we were able to go back and reintroduce a lot of the old EU Force factions into canon and create some new ones. And they are still playing out. And that's the thing. A lot of people thought Phase 2 was this little capsule thing that was going off into the past. But this is Star Wars. People live a long time in Star Wars. So some of those characters who are young in Phase 2 have started to appear in Phase 3 as we've gone back to the main storyline. And a lot of those new religions that we included are starting to play out now as we enter into Phase 3.
That was a good segue. Just as Cav said, we're into Phase 3 now. Everything is connected. Even if you don't think it's connected, it's connected. What the team has been doing from the very beginning is working hard to make sure that, yes, you can read a book individually, or a comic, or a manga, But if you are reading everything, boy, you're seeing the much bigger picture here. So we launched trials in November with Eye of Darkness, which sets the stage for where we're at. And George, I don't know if you want to speak briefly to Eye of Darkness, and then we'll move on to the High Republic Adventures.
Yeah, I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but things are at a pretty bad place when we join the Jedi at the start of Eye of Darkness. So it's a kind of a journey back to the light, really, for them, and the glint of hope that's going to lead the way back to, hopefully, their success at the end of the trials. We shall see. But yeah, so it was an interesting book to jump in and write and get my head around, kind of like, how do we take them from this bad place to hinting at things getting better.
But I will say at the start of this one, if you haven't read it, and this is not a spoiler because this is the beginning of the book, the bad guys have won. So it's a pretty interesting take on it to say, okay, well this is, it's basically how are they going to get out of this one, right? And it's that's what we're doing for a lot of Phase 3. So speaking about High Republic Adventures, this is a comic that goes into a lot of the younglings and Padawans. Nick drew a bunch for us during Phase 1, back for Phase 3. I think we've got some pages here. I wanted to go over some of these pages because this is something that you had done with Harvey that worked beautifully. I was hoping you could talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, there was Daniel came up with the conceit of having two timelines being described within a story. One where I don't know what I can say, but one where we see what goes on with Lula in the past, and then one which keeps up with the present, where Harvey is telling that story and I'm telling the past Lula story. So he decided to come up with a script that melded the two of us into one issue. So he'd have pages where he described things for Harvey and described things for me, all on one page. And so our job was to try and create a distinction between the two timelines without necessarily going into the old, make slightly different shaped squares around them. And so the way we figured it out was Harvey would tackle the script first. Harvey Tolibao, who is a bananas artist, and he would figure out his interpretation of the script, bounce it over to me with his rough layouts like you see over on the left, and then I would fill in blanks and change little bits here and there and fire those back, and then when those got approved, he would ink his sections like on the left, and then I would get his inks and then, his final artwork, and then I would put my final artwork on the other side, and then we would have to send that to Michael Atiye. Is that how you say his name? Atiye.
Yeah.
And then he had to figure out how to color them. And I think it worked really well because Harvey has that, kinetic but very detailed style, and I have that sort of very dark looking thing. So I think it worked.
No, it worked beautifully, and you can even see that, Harvey's first layout isn't what ended up in the final book, right? Because it was a little bit of a learning curve of how are the two of you going to make this work, and really tell two stories going on at once. This is more of your stuff, and I just wanted to see if you could speak a little bit to process here.
Yeah, process-wise, I do layouts in tiny little post-it notes. So I look at the script and then I figure out on little post-it notes how things are going to look, which is why they look like tiny little scribbles. But I find that works really well because you just see shapes rather than looking too much into detail. And then I blow those up and pencil them, and then attack them with ink. What have we got going over here? Oh yeah, and then those inks get sent over to Mike, who did a thing called a color hold over my inks, which is why they look kind of dreamy and blue looking. So he changed all the black ink into this kind of blue color in order to indicate the time period that we're in.
But it's really beautiful stuff, and again, I don't know how many people get to see process, so we wanted to make sure that you were aware, and again, Nick, you work both physically and digitally, correct?
Yeah, actually, these pages are all physical. These particular ones.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, I was trying to channel a little bit of anime, like on the manga, should I say, on the left-hand page, where they use lots of expression lines and movement lines, because I wanted to show the ferocity of Lula's movements, and also because how much can I give away?
You can talk about this, I think. It's been out for a while.
Because her personality is a bit fractured at this point, and she's she must be channeling the Force. It must be something that's going through her. So I feel that her violent actions would be more violent than a Jedi. And so that's what I was trying to convey there.
And this is the finished product. The finished product.
There you go. Also, I loved her hair. When they drew her before as a Jedi, she was all tied back. But then when she got into her new outfit, she let her hair go wild. And I like drawing that.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
This is fun stuff. So this is published by Dark Horse. This is for Star Wars Adventures. Another thing published by Dark Horse is Saber for Hire. Cav, who is Ty Yorick, if the crowd doesn't know?
So Ty Yorick she was once a Padawan who, as we discover in the Monster Temple Peak in Phase 1, had a troubled Padawanship and did something that she felt absolute shame for immediately, and her way of dealing with that was to run away. So she ran away, she changed her name, and she became a mercenary. So there is points with Ty now, who is now an adult. She has certain training. She's not very good at telekinesis because it's like, I'm not very good at French anymore, but I was rubbish when I was at school. I'm even worse now because you forget all that language. So for a Jedi who's not practicing to use the Force, so telekinesis she struggles with. So she's overcompensated with gadgetry and flamethrowers. And so she's fallen into becoming a monster hunter. She's sort of like the Witcher of the High Republic era. And in Saber for Hire, which I create with Rachael, who's the original artist on Ty as well, she has found herself with someone who's desperate to be her Padawan. And she keeps saying, I'm not a Jedi, and you're my squire, so just pick this stuff up. And they have this great relationship where all he wants to be is to be Ty Yorick, and all she wants to be is to be alone.
We have issue 2 coming out in about 2 weeks, and like Cav said, Rachel's been drawing this. Rachael created the character with Cav. Rachael, what's your process like for when you work on this?
It's a tricky question because it's like, I really love working with Cav because I feel like you've got a very cinematic style, the way you write your scripts. So when I get the script and I read it through and I feel like I can really see it like right away, because I think I've got a really bad artist's instinct to overdraw things. So if I think that I'm not drawing well enough, I'll just add more onto the page to disguise it. But with your scripts, it's like, I can really feel like I can leave space and it doesn't, I always have that guilt of, I'm lazy, that's why I've left space. I was like, no, it's negative space. It was done purposefully. So it's really nice. So I'm just looking at these pages and I was like, oh yeah. But when you were saying about the concept art thing, one of the things I really loved about working on the High Republic is that for each issue, I'll be sent references to like old concept art, and you really get this impression that like Lucasfilm has this like archive of material that's like, even if it isn't used in a particular thing, because it all fits into the world so well, it's like, oh, but you know, if we need like a speed thingy for this part, then I was going to say a hover bike, and my brain was like, we need Ty to be riding a hover skateboard for this scene to look rad. And then there'll be some sort of thing that wasn't used in like Empire Strikes Back that we can use. I really love that as well. It just feels like it gives a great continuity to the world. Like, yeah.
I mean, something we definitely did right. I mean, it's what they did in Rebels, wasn't it? You know, Filoni went back and he looked at the original designs for Attack Walkers and things like that, and went, well, if we're back in the past, we use that because they're the earliest things. And so we did it. I mean, there is a huge archive of material. So the majority of the High Republic ships, you know, the droids that Ty had, definitely. I mean, I think they were both designed for Solo.
Yeah.
And so we are taking stuff from the prequels, from the original films, from the TV shows. I would just like to say, working with Rachael, well, the three of us, George, me and Rachael worked together for it's been 83 years. But we started on Whisper It Doctor Who, and the first thing we ever did was the Doctor goes to San Diego Comic Con, and we did this page splash to give Rachael a break. The TARDIS is in San Diego, the doors open, Peter Capaldi walks out, big. When the page arrived, Peter Capaldi was in the bottom left-hand corner, and there were 278 cosplayers, all wearing different costumes. The colorist must have loved you that day. But yeah, we just get that's what Rachael does. She just sees and just adds stuff to the world, and it's phenomenal.
Well, you set it up as if you knew what the next spread was going to be. So you know, this is a spread from issue 2, where again, you know, you talk about not wanting to overdraw and leaving negative space, but this is
me trying not to overdraw.
But it's beautiful, right? And you can see that you didn't overdraw. Everything in here is impactful, right? But it's not overdone. Your eye doesn't get lost.
So this is Ty as a Padawan with the training with her master. We teased in the first series, and Master may and may not have a bigger part in her future as well. But this is her learning to want to be able to mind meld with him and share each other's thoughts, which we see her doing in The Rising Storm with Elsa Mann, and this is where she learnt it.
Master Chewbacca.
But again, the other thing I wanted to showcase was again how much Rachael puts into it, because this is the final one. But even on this one, it's like you're not skimping here. How long does something like this take you?
I feel like that could have used like 10 more guys. Like I remember, I had that on my big tablet at home. I would just zoom in and zoom out, and I'm like, that just looks empty there. It just needs more stuff. Something like that would probably take about. So it's normally like a page a day. It's probably about two days. But the problem is, it's really easy. Like my tablet, like says like this. It's so easy to zoom in and get really focused on something, and then you zoom out and realise that like it's missing something on some other part. But yeah, I was telling someone earlier as well, is that you're not allowed to invent aliens as well. So it's always this thing. I think you said that you have a lot of reference books. So I've got all these reference books at home. So if I'm like doing this scene with I really like doing is it the nihil? The nihil?
I forgot. Denial. Flipping heck, I went for a minute. Yeah.
So that's the thing, it's all written down to what's like the nihil. Is that they're any species, any gender, and so like you can literally, it's almost like you're a bit spoiled for choice, because you sort of get the reference books, okay, what alien should I use? And then you pick an alien, pick what sort of body shape they are, and then you choose how they're going to be all weird looking with their nihil gas masks on and things. And yeah, I think the only time when they said you couldn't use that was, what's the, Misa, we're going to do it.
Gungan.
Yeah. They were like, you can't Gungan. And I was like,
Occasionally we say no. All right, so we're up to Trials of the Jedi now. Like we said before, it started in November. This is the big conclusion of our story. This is not the conclusion of the High Republic, but because we are here at Portsmouth, because we were, they were kind enough to invite us, we wanted to make sure that the folks here got some news and reveals and announcements before anyone else. So let's start. We'll stay with you guys and talk about Saber for Hire number 3. This is not out until the end of June. Cavan and Rachael, do you want to explain what's going on here?
Something with tentacles.
So in phase 3, Ty is behind enemy lines and loving every minute of it because she can charge as much as she wants for killing monsters. But she only ever kills monsters that aren't sentient, and she, there is still a little bit of Jedi in there. But her past is running to catch up with her. She, as I said, she has a Padawan, or a squire, who's desperate to prove his worth through, and he hears that the Chancellor's son is in an occupied space in the occlusion zone, and he says, we can go and save him and make a name for himself, and Ty's like, I have a name, thanks, I don't need any more. So he goes off, he steals her ship to prove himself, and that always goes well. And so this is sort of Ty having to go after and put right the mess he's made.
I don't think
you can see why Cavan's the writer, because I was like, something with tentacles.
I don't think he's going to get there in time. It's not looking good. Cav, staying with you, High Republic 8 is out in June. We have a couple teases for this one. First of all, who's the authority in the center there?
Someone with tentacles. I know. So that's Baron Boulan, who is the Nile Minister of Advancement. Stroke mad scientist, and he is, basically he's an Arthurian Dr. Frankenstein, and the Peter Cushing Dr. Frankenstein, the evil one who just puts, arms on people's heads just to see what happens. That's pretty much what Boulan's all around. He's experimenting on Force users. And this is where we tie back to the second phase. He has his little band of merry psychos called the Children of the Storm, who are out there gathering children who are Force sensitive to turn them into monsters. It's a nice chap.
We have some teases from this one too. You want to speak to any of this? You want to just let it go? What do you think? Sorry.
That is a space station. Well, Frankenstein has a castle. Baron Boulan has a space station and a gas giant. Obviously.
Obviously. Does he just have one?
Maybe.
All right, let's talk about these two. This is an unlikely pair. Can you speak a little bit to these two?
So the young lady with the green face, that's Lorna Dee. Now Lorna Dee was a bit of a big deal in the first season because she was one of the baddies. She was one of the Nile. I can say it now. I remembered. She was sort of right hand. Tempest Runner was her name. She was her title in the Nile. She was there, right hand to Markian Row. She has fallen out of love with Markian Row. She has fallen out of love with the Nile. She has basically fallen out of love with the galaxy, and somehow has thrown her lot in with a bunch of Jedi who are really struggling to find their way in the New World Order. And weirdly, has become a bit of a mentor to some of the Jedi, which is something she never thought would happen. She's alongside Tay Cyric. Tay was around in Phase 2. He was a young, in my head he's played by David Tennant, and that's what he sounds like. But now he's David Tennant with a big beard, he's like Santa Tennant. And so he, again, has been someone who has a history with the Jedi. He has a very definite history with one particular Jedi, because what goes on Jeddah stays on Jeddah. That's the way that Jedi like to think about it. And so these two have been Jedi adjacent for a long time on both sides of the equation, and now find themselves fighting for the light.
And they team up with someone who's still sort of Jedi adjacent here in a way.
Right. Skier. Yeah, Skier is, he was one of the first masters introduced in the initiative. He was originally based on a concept art by Phil Noto, who put a Trandoshan Jedi in, and I was like, I want him. And so we created Skier, who's had a lot of problems in his time. He has a degenerative disease, which means that he has lost the ability to concentrate enough to create any kind of connection to the Force, and his lizard brain, he's a Trandoshan, is taken over. So for a Trandoshan, that's really, that's big problems. And for a Jedi Trandoshan, that's even worse. Everyone thought he'd been lost, and he was pretty much lost. And they're trying to drag him back, but he's struggling with that with that entire journey.
You also chopped his arm off.
Yeah, but it grew back. He's Trandoshan. It's fine.
He's fine.
Hi, this is George Mann, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
Let's look at some other stuff that's new, shall we? So Nick, I know you can't say much about it, but what can you tell us about Crash and Burn?
Oh boy. Well, I've drawn a few pages. The whole thing is laid out. Oh, there they go. There's Crash with her team. We have, I can't remember all their names. Her mom's there. That cool Jedi guy. Is he ex-Jedi or just like, is he walked away from it? I didn't get the full story.
He's kind of fallen away from the Order.
But he's not been excommunicated.
No, he's walked away. Whether or not he comes back, we shall see.
Okay. So she's got her team together and she's on a crazy kind of bonkers mission involving a character that many people love to hate. I hate him. But it's fun to draw. I don't know what else I could say. It's very secretive.
That's probably all you can say. I will say that we did a book called Crash Landing earlier in the year that Daniel also wrote. This is the sequel to that. This is more where Cav was dealing with some of the monsters and Jedi hunters. This is a bit more of the sort of bounty hunter, scoundrel, man on the street stories. These are really welcoming for something that is scoundrels and bounty hunters, right? We're talking about jumping on points, Crash Landing and this. Because there's such a family connection to them, you can relate very easily to them. So these are wonderful jumping on points. Let's talk about some more new stuff. George, who's that guy?
That's Darth Ravi.
Who is Darth Ravi?
So Darth Ravi is an ancient Sith who is obsessed with the Echo Stones. Some of you might have heard of the Echo Stones. I'm not going to go too much into detail about what they are at this stage, but
Well, you can say, just to interrupt very briefly, we're talking about everything being connected. We did a one-shot in Phase 2 called Quest of the Jedi, where a lot of that comes up, and this is where you first hear the name Darth Ravi, and then George is continuing that story here.
Yeah, so we have Reith, Silas, and Amadeo, a Padawan, who was introduced in a short story in the Tales of Light and Life anthology, are digging through the Jedi archives, trying to find out more about the Echo Stones. And this is the first issue of a series where we're going to see some of the stories they pull out of the Jedi archive and what they learn from it. So what I particularly love about this guy is he looks like Roger Delgado's master from Doctor Who as well. So this is if anyone who's read my Dark Legend stories, you'll enjoy this. It's kind of a myth from the ancient past of the Star Wars universe, a dive back in time to kind of have a look at where the Echo Stone started.
And this is a 4-issue mini coming out later this year, and we do jump through time a little bit for this one. This is a fun one, so be prepared. Let's reveal something else, shall we? George, who's this guy?
So this is Padawan Cam Linden, who's coming in a couple of stories that we haven't talked about and haven't announced yet. So you have to wait to find out more about where he's going to actually appear. But Cam is a Jedi you'll see he's got a vocoder on his throat. He had a horrible accident on Coruscant, hover car accident when he was a little bit younger, and lost the ability to speak naturally. So he's got a vocoder, so his voice is an electronic voice. And he's a bit self-conscious about that, and he doesn't have a lot of confidence as he's starting out. He's just made the jump from being a youngling to a Padawan as well. So he's kind of out with his master, going on his first missions, finding his way in the world.
Yeah, so he'll be an important character a little bit later this year. So sneak peek for the folks here first. What else do we have? So, we mentioned the occlusion zone earlier. It's a section of space that the Nile control that the Jedi are not in, the Republic are not in. It's Nihil space. You're not supposed to enter there. We don't know what's going on over there. Communications are down. Ships can't get through. So we figured, we need to figure out what's going on over there. So very proud to announce Stories from Beyond the Storm Wall, Dispatches from the Occlusion Zones, a 4-issue miniseries. So this is the cover by Jake Bartok. I should say Jake did the concept art that you saw earlier. This is another fun one for us because it's Daniel, Alyssa, and Cav all writing different issues of this one. Cav, can you speak a little bit to yours? That's enough. Thanks, Cav. That's great. You can speak a little bit.
So I'm writing the 4th issue, which is set after Tempest Breaker, which is the audio drama that's coming out at the end of the year, which is a story that features Lorna Dee, who we saw the Twilight Restorer, and Keith Trennis, who's been reading the comic. Keith features in that, maybe. I don't think she goes by Jedi Master anymore at that point.
Really?
Maybe not. And Ty Yorick's in there as well, following on from the adventures in Save for Hire, and we find out where she's ended up. But yeah, messages are coming out of the Occlusion Zone, and people are there, have to be there to greet them.
Yeah, and this one, as you can see, this one not only has Elzar Mann in it, it has Emmerich in it has Crash, it has Court. So this is a fun anthology that allows us to jump around a bit and really give a glimpse into what life is like on the other side. This comes out later this year and leads into basically the beginning of the end for next year. It leads into our January books, and then from January to June, basically all hell breaks loose, and it's our big ending. So we've got a lot of fun books coming up. Before we wrap, because we're going to have to wrap in a minute for the panelists up here. All right, we're just about at the end of the lightning round for what you're looking forward to.
Just more of this. It's been amazing to have just such a swath of artists and writers and to kind of build to go back in time and build on everything that came before. And I think it's really special to kind of do this here. I think just bringing it somewhere where you don't have all of Hollywood made it really special. And the fact that it's here, people dressed up, means the world to us, like Mike said. Hope to be here lots in the future. And so, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Just excited for people to read Saber for Hire and to react to that and stuff. And it has, like I said, it's just been really fun to be part of the High Republic. Like, it's got this very unique, very wonderful fan base that just really invested into it, and it's very exciting to be a part of that stuff. So yeah.
In Tempest Breaker, Lorna Dee.
Well, Gavin's excited for Tempest Breaker. George? Seriously, pick that one up, though. You're not going to want to miss that.
I'm looking forward to seeing how many more people I can make cry.
Yeah.
No, really, Aslan Rel, that's all I'll say.
Good point. Okay. Nick?
I just want Markion to get his, man.
Get Tempest Breaker!
Yeah.
I'm sick of that guy. Hate him. I love him, though.
You should pick up Tempest Breaker. It's pretty important. But seriously, thank you all. I wanted to just do one last reminder before we go, which is, beware your names. But thank you all for coming out. Thank you for reading. Thank you for supporting our books and comics, for supporting these amazing authors and artists. We really do appreciate it. It means the world to us. Thank you for having us in the UK, and may the force be with you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for joining us for this special edition of Canon Fodder. For more Star Wars podcast content, be sure to subscribe to Fantha Tracks Radio on your podcatcher of choice. Subscribe to all our social media at links.fanthatracks.com. Be sure to be checking out fanthatracks.com daily for all your latest Star Wars news. And you can also join us live on YouTube for Good Morning Tatooine every Sunday evening at youtube.com/Fantha Tracks TV.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's Making Tracks.